Hey, this is Samantha Denefe with Your ID and Arkansas Catholic, and I'm excited to be here with you live. I want to talk about family culture. So I got to travel a little bit while I was in college. I went to Belize and Honduras. I got to play in Europe and stuff, and it was great, and I loved it. I loved experiencing other cultures. And we do that kind of thing. What are we looking for? We're looking for like the types of food that these people eat. We're looking for the way they spend their free time and their leisure and their play. It's always great when we go to a festival and see how they dress and act and the different games they play. All of those things make a culture, right? It's also important to be aware of what kind of culture we are making in our families at home. So if we're not conscious about it and about choosing the culture we create, then our society around us is going to create the culture for us in our families. So I want to encourage you to sit down, talk to your spouse about what kind of culture are you creating as a family. A good way to kind of see what you're doing right now is to pull out your calendar, pull out your checkbook, and look at where you're spending your money and where you're spending your time. Those are good indicators to what you are valuing as important. I don't want to knock sports. I love sports. I played basketball all the way through high school and college. I went to state. I was nominated to the McDonald All-American team, okay? I don't hate sports. I love sports. That was for basketball. I'm tall. But what I do want to say is I do have concerns sometimes when our entire schedule as a family revolves around one kid's sporting activities to where you're gone every single night of the week. Sometimes God might be calling you to that, and that's great. But I would be concerned about that, and I would encourage you to pray through that too, because that's going to create a culture that says like sports are the most important thing. And what we want to do in a family when we're following Jesus is put Jesus at the center of our family. Now that means we're going to make mistakes, we're going to screw up, and that's okay. But maybe we want to look at, okay, how can we make family most important? Well, we could implement a game night every night. And when kids are little, I know this is hard because you're playing like Old Maid or like the Go Fish game. But it's important to do that. It's important to wrestle with your kids, to laugh with your kids, to take time with your kids. So that's really important. And I think one thing that's really important to do when you're creating a family culture is help your kids know that they are holy. Now, this is something that's interesting is when I talk to people about holiness, we often go like, oh, I'm not holy. But you have to know the definition of holy. Holy means being set aside for a purpose. And God set you aside for a purpose. He knows the plans that He has made for you, and He wants good things for you. And He knows that, and He made you part of His family through your baptism. And that's the same with your kids. They're set aside for your purpose. So part of your family culture should be helping you find a way to help your kids find their purpose, find their calling in life. All right? So I really want to encourage you to do that, to look at that, to help your kids become saints. And we have to understand here again, what do we mean by saints? Saints are just anybody who gets to heaven. Not just canonized saints, but if you have grandma or grandpa and they've passed on and you think they're in heaven, they're saints too. Canonized saints, we've just researched and we know for sure they're in heaven. But if you know grandma and grandpa are in heaven, they're saints. We want our kids to be saints too, but we also have to think about, what do we think of when we think of saints? Oftentimes we think of very quiet people who are very meek and have no personality and are always praying with their hands perfectly folded. But that's not who saints are. Look in history. I love Joan of Arc. She's my patron saint. She led men into battle. She watched them die before her. She stood up to the church when there was injustice for her. So we have very powerful saints. Saint Teresa of Avila said, Lord, please save us from sour-faced saints. Okay, there were women who were powerful and sinned and messed up too. It's all about keeping God at the center of your heart. So one thing, my favorite story of Saint Teresa of Avila was she was riding across a creek on a horse, and the saddle fell off, and she turned to God and said, "This is why you don't have so many friends if you treat them like this." Like, that's hilarious. And our relationship with God should be personal and close like that, to where we can talk to Him about everything going on in our life. So in your family culture, try to set up prayer time. Try to set up meal times. Try to make your house a home that focuses on God and is very intentional about the culture that you create. All right, I'll see you next month. This is Samantha Denefe in Arkansas Catholic.